Meeny, miny, mo. Start with this one, shall we? This is the Zero FXS. That's a very upright position. So this is a half-size battery. Essentially it's one battery. This bike has two batteries, so depending on how you want to look at it, we just switch on the ignition. Runs through the little animation there. Kill switch to on. We get the little swirly green arrow and we're good to go. Then we're off. That is incredibly upright. So used to my FZ1 being a little bit pitched forward. It's just eerie how quiet that is. Okay, and onto some country twisties. Oh, that is astonishing how fast these things are. Forgotten completely since the last time I had a go on a Zero. I didn't actually get the chance to go on the FXS. This is the Supermoto style bike, which has the straight through long saddle. Zero are pitching this at kind of the place in the market held by 350cc KTMs and the like. Things like the Super Duke 390 and friends. It's just so weird that there's no engine noise whatsoever, and also there's no vibration because obviously there's no engine, there's no cylinders flying around the place. When you give it the beans, wow. And this is in eco mode, because of course these bikes have three separate modes chosen by the mode button down here on my right thumb. So if we check on the dial there, we've got eco right now. Push the button, it switches to custom, which you can set up using the app on Android and iPhone, which you connect to the bike via Bluetooth. Or there's the sport mode, which is obviously the everything always. It's the full on, everything is at maximum setting. Naturally in sport you're going to then get higher performance but obviously reduced range, whereas eco is just restricting everything a tiny little bit and therefore giving you a slightly longer range. Oh, holy bonkers. That is unbelievable. And this is of course the lower powered of the three bikes that I'm going to have a go on from Zero today. This bike has approximately 40 horsepower, but the thing that makes it astonishing performance wise is the incredible torque. I sadly don't remember the exact number of how much torque we're getting out of the back wheel of this bike, but I will flash it on screen for you as I find out. Picked a terrible road. The responsiveness from the line is really good. The mapping that they've used on the throttle control is so very, very responsive. Your inputs are instantly rewarded with very expected results. But it's important to remember that with no engine noise, the sensation of speed is slightly altered. So take it easy in town because it's so easy just to... Whoa, yeah. That is fantastic. And the ride is absolutely razor sharp. The astonishing thing is just how incredibly light this feels. We've got all of this power, but it seems like it's coming out of nothing because the bike has no weight. Which also means, despite the fact that we've only got single disc brakes, the stopping power is more than adequate. Let's see how we do on a shifty overtake, shall we? Oh, it's just... effortless, unbelievable. Now, of course, I'm quite a large lad. I'm 6'4". I think that's 192 centimeters. So finding it, everything is very close. The bars are very close to me. My knees are quite up here. But that said, I've ridden on far more cramped bikes in the past. I mean, and for the throw-aboutable nature of this bike, its position is perfect. I mean, that's why supermotos are so good for wrapping around in the country lanes and smashing it effortlessly and nimbly through town. Just feel very planted on the bike. I mean, the setup is fantastic. The speed with which you can flick it over, because this thing just has no weight whatsoever. Again, overtaking, just easy as pie. Twist to the wrist and bosh, the power is instantly there. Reach for the clutch then. It's just so very nimble. The ride quality is really good. These bikes have front and rear fully adjustable shower suspension. At no point there did the back end duck under acceleration. The front wasn't divey. Everything just seemed really well dialed in. Now, of course, the important thing that everybody wants to know when you start talking about electric motorbikes is how far can they go and how long is it going to take to charge? Well, this bike, as standard, when I pulled away from the yard just there, it was giving us a potential range of about 60 miles, which obviously I've got it on sport mode and I'm mostly tonking it at between 50 and 60 miles an hour. So that's naturally going to be the quickest way to deplete your battery. And then when it comes to charging time, to get yourself another 60 to 70 miles, plugging straight into ordinary 240 mains, this bike is going to take about 7 hours to charge to full. Now, the charger for this bike is the thing hiding behind the front wheel that looks very sneakily like a radiator, which as standard is a 1 kilowatt charger. Now, obviously technology is advancing and there are now extra options. At the English electric motorcycle company, you can get yourself a supercharger, which in contrast to the 1 kilowatt charger which is on the bike already, it itself is a 9 kilowatt charger. So that's going to be charging the bike 9 times as quick, and also allows you to use the big charging points for electric vehicles that you see in various charging stations around the country. The only downside with this particular bike, with the FXS, is when you put the supercharger on, there's nowhere for it to go. So sadly, it has to go on a top box on the back. Admittedly, that might look a little bit silly, but if you desperately needed the quick charging, think about it, 9 times quicker than 7 hours, that's going to be less than an hour. That's just like half an hour, 40 minutes to charge the bike to full. I mean, I can drink a coffee and eat a piece of cake for longer than that. But of course, the main point for this bike really is just the short range, blasting it about quickly on a Sunday afternoon, or even just commuting short distance, plugging it in every night, leaving it to charge overnight, rinse and repeat. And for those uses, it's absolutely perfect. It's so light, it's so flickable. I would gladly commute to work on this thing, and despite the fact that it's got this typical supermoto style slide up the tank for when you're coming around the corners with your feet out, saddle going on, it's actually surprisingly comfortable. And considering over the last 3 days I've done over 1,000 miles because of my Moto Cafe Tour thing, check up the top right to see the Moto Cafe Tour videos. Because of that, I've got a little bit of a sensitive derriere right now. My arse is made of glass, sadly. Iron butt, I am not. But this bike is doing a pretty good job of cradling my delicate posterior, and very easy to climb about on as well for when we get really scratchy in the twisties. I just kind of wish I knew this area a little better so I could probably get some beans going on. Let's go down this little track, shall we? That's what supermotos were meant for, isn't it? Again, this road surface is awful, but the bike is doing a fantastic job of following it, and the brakes do a great job of stopping it up as well. And that strange noise that you can hear there, I'm relatively sure was the regenerative braking, which is a setting that means that when the bike is being slowed down, it actually feeds electricity back into the batteries. So instead of just wasting that stopping force, you're throwing a bit of power back in, getting yourself an extra few meters of range. And that is a setting that you can change. So if you're the kind of rider who likes engine braking, you like that feeling of the bike stopping up on its own, you can increase the level of Jesus, go on, spit it out. You can increase the level of regenerative braking, or instead, if you're coming from a super smooth 4-cylinder that has almost no engine braking, you can turn the regenerative braking right down and get that characteristic of your bike instead. So the way that the motor acts and performs, you can customize, you can change your throttle response, you can make it more aggressive, you can make it a bit softer, you can limit your top speed, you can limit your torque, you can limit your power, you can change all of these things within the custom setting within the app, and then that setting is suddenly recallable by pushing the mode button on the right hand there. I've gone into custom now, but I didn't set anything up, so God only knows what we're getting. So Pandora's box of settings. So let's go back to sport, shall we? And then instantly, bosh, the power is back on. Now this bike will set you back somewhere in the region of £9,000. You've got yourself a bike that needs no petrol. You've got a belt drive, which is only going to need changing at about 24,000 miles. And in between that time, it's not going to need oiling. It's not going to need adjusting. As you can hear, it's completely silent. You've also got no moving parts in the engine to worry about servicing. You don't have to have your valves done. You don't have to have any belts or chains changed. You don't have to worry about blowing a head gasket. You don't have to worry about topping up the oil. There is in fact no recommended servicing schedule for a Zero motorcycle because there's nothing that needs to be done. Although English electric motorcycles, they do recommend that you just come in once a year for an inspection just to make sure that you keep it on top of anything that could potentially go wrong, which is, let's be honest, pretty much nothing. But it's so easy to track it around these little corners, even though the ground is a little bit loose under me. The confidence that the geometry of this bike inspires is really quite special. I mean, and I'm not the world's greatest rider, but I'm already feeling in control of this machine on less than the world's greatest roads. And this bike, the FXS, is rocking its dual projector halogen headlights at the front. Not LED, but we'll come back to that later on. It's got braided brake lines on front and rear as standard. And with regards to the braking, you get ABS also as standard, but there is no traction control on these bikes, which could prove problematic for some if you're a bit of a clumsy rider, because you've got so much torque so instantly at the rear wheel that it can potentially catch you out when you give it a handful out of a bend and you've got no digital aids to help you out. Missed my turning there, so it's a good opportunity to test our U-turning abilities. Yep, that is very easy, very well balanced, and that was an impossibly slow U-turn as well. But it's so light and the weight is so low down in the frame. I mean, there's no engine making it top heavy, there's no fuel tank making it top heavy. So balancing it at low speed like that was a piece of cake. Not having a clutch, of course, means that there's a lot more emphasis on your right hand being controlled, being smooth, but I mean, that's something that's going to come with practice, isn't it? So we're now on 50% battery capacity left. We've got a range at my current riding style of 24 miles left, so I've been thrisping it a little bit too exuberantly, it would seem. So perhaps for you, 50 to 70 miles isn't quite enough for you to get your rocks off. Maybe this bike, although incredibly enjoyable and incredibly fun, isn't quite going to meet your needs because you want to go a little bit further. You maybe want more of a feel of a bigger bike between your legs. Well, fear not, because for that there is the DSR. So this is the Zero DSR, which, as I already said, it's got twice the battery power, which as a result means we've got twice the range. We're getting just shy of 100 miles shown there. That's in sport mode. So, enough mincing about. Let's get on and ride the thing. Oh, already much more familiar riding position for me. A little bit further forwards over the bars, seats a little bit further back, and the pegs are a little bit further down. Like much more of a feeling of having a bike between your legs, rather than being perched on an electrified racing snake like it was with the FXS. Also already feels a lot more planted, a lot more stable. That way this time, shall we? Get a bit more noise from the motor on the DSR than we had on the FSX. I guess I put that down to the fact that, as well as having the increased battery power and increased range, it's also putting out a fair bit more power and a fair bit more torque. If I remember correctly, I think we're getting about 70 horsepower out of this now, and very similar levels of torque. I'm going to stick that on the screen because, like a plonker, I forgot to ask what the exact numbers were. Now, already I'm noticing that in the eco mode here, the throttle response is far, far softer than it was on the FXS. It's really forgiving, really gentle. If I give it the full beans, it takes a little bit longer just to really wind up. It's not an aggressive acceleration. And obviously, as a byproduct of that, we're going to be getting more range because it's not squeezing the juice out of the battery as fast as possible. With that being said, it's definitely still no slouch. Strange feeling having to get used to not going for the gear lever to shift down as I come into the village. Filtering, despite the fact that we're in the countryside, very easy. Although with the eco setting on, you have to be prepared for it to be a little bit slow in the uptake, which means that just then I kind of almost overbalanced a little bit because I was ready for a blast of power, but it didn't quite come as quickly as I was expecting. So yeah, there's things to get used to. In eco mode you can even overtake uphill as well. Now, the ride of this bike actually feels a little bit harder, a little bit harsher than the FXS was, but of course the suspension front and back is all adjustable shower suspension, so it could very well just be down to the settings. It could be set up harder. So we've got what I would imagine is rebound damping down there, so I've given that a couple of twists towards soft, and then we've got compression damping here, which I'll give that as well, a couple of clicks towards softer. Yeah, that harshness has instantly gone. It was just obviously a little bit over damped. Feels just as plush as the FXS did. But still without any diving at the back end, there's no wallowing. Yeah, the suspension on these bikes is really well set up. There's no worry at all going past the horses that you're going to scare them. And speaking of horses, I think it's about time we tried out sport mode, isn't it? Oh my good lordy, that is an astonishing difference from eco mode. Oh, you just get all of that juice instantly the second you twist your wrist. And the brakes do a fine job of pulling it up. While I've stopped, I've had a quick battery change, but I just want to take a quick look at this little add-on here. This is new since the last time I rode a Zero. Before there was the fabric bag which was jumping around, looked like it wanted to hop out because it wasn't enjoying the ride. Whereas now they've got this lockable storage compartment. That's a really nice touch. And look at the size of the space in here. That's a proper handy bunch of storage to have, isn't it? Awesome as well that it's a lockable, secure storage space at that. And what else is new on the 2018 model? Apparently we've got 10% more battery capacity, 10% more power, 10% more insanity, and also something that is a huge difference is the fact that the battery chemistry has been very slightly altered so that now they are less susceptible to atmospheric temperature. On the older models there used to be a noticeable change in performance when it would go either side of its ideal temperature. So when the batteries were too hot or too cold, they would decrease in performance, decrease in range by as much as 20%. Whereas due to this slight tweak in the battery chemistry, that's now been hugely reduced to about a 5% maximum deviation in the optimal operation of the battery. So that's a huge change, especially if you're going to be using a bike like this all year round and in all temperatures. Oh, tracking your lines is so easy. That's, oh my word. Balance of the weight of this bike is so confidence inspiring and feels so stable and so planted. And that's despite the fact that it's got the Pirelli MT60 dual sport tyres. With it being the DSR, it's the dual sport R. Oh, just imagine the cornering japery you could have with this if you had yourself a set of proper sticky rubber boots on. Okay, now coming back to this handy little storage cubbyhole here, we already know that the range of this bike is between 80 and 130 miles, but you can do some things to actually both increase the range and also to decrease the charging time. That's where, for the most part, this little cubby hole here comes in. If you sacrifice this cubby hole, you could install in here instead the Zero branded supercharger unit, which will give you a 6 kilowatt charger, which means that you're going to be charging 6 times faster than the 1 kilowatt charger which is built into the bottom of the belly pan of the bike. And as standard, this bike takes 9 hours to charge. If you're doing it in 6 times the speed, that's going to get you down to, the maths, 6 times faster, twice as fast would be 4.5, 4 times as fast would be 50% divided by 25. So that's going to be much faster to charge. Alternatively, you can get another battery which goes in here, and that battery will give you approximately another 30 miles of range, but you can't have the Zero charge pack and the Zero supercharger unit at the same time because there is only one cubby hole. So this is where the electric motorcycle company come in, because their supercharger, I already mentioned it to do with the FXS, which is a DigiNow branded supercharger. That actually gets built into the bike, and then just as before, that gives you a 9 kilowatt charger, so you're charging up the battery 9 times as fast as long as it's from one of the big stage 2 charging ports. But the beauty of that is that means at the same time you can also have the Zero charge pack and get you extra 30 miles of range. So your range has gone up to anywhere from 120 to 160 miles, plus you can get the bike charged up to full in less than an hour. So that means that in the time it takes you to have a cup of tea, stretch your legs, strain your potatoes, your bike is potentially back up to full charge again. Another thing which is new on this bike for 2018 that wasn't available on the old version is that any firmware updates which become available for the bike, whereas before you'd have to go to the dealer to get them done, now you can actually use the app again on the phone to update the firmware on your bike. So once you've bought the bike, there's essentially no real need to go to the dealership at all. There's nothing that needs to be done. It is about as close to servicing free as a motorbike can get. And while we're on the subject of buying, one of these, the 2018 Zero DSR, will set you back somewhere in the region of about £14,000. This bike, the DSR, is being pitched kind of in the same sort of market as 600 to 800cc, except I would say compared to my 1000cc bike, at the bottom end, Oh, the poke from this thing is far superior. I mean, obviously they're not going to keep on pushing that hard because this is going to have a limit of around a maximum 100 miles an hour. But up to that point, this bike doesn't have a motor, it has a friggin' hyperdrive. Yep. These are very impressive, truly amazing machines, and that was a lot of fun. I wish I had a lot longer, but it's going to get dark at some point, and we've still got a couple more machines to try out. Oh yeah, I did forget though. I was going to mention about the LED headlight thing. When I did the last test ride video of the Zeros, a lot of people asked, why do the bikes have halogen headlight bulbs? And apparently the actual bottom line answer of it, sadly, it's all about cost, because aside from designing and building the headlights, in order for Zero to have those headlights on the bikes in Europe, they would have to be homologated, which means testing in order to get the E mark. And the cost of doing that is truly astronomical. So sadly, as it stands, they're sticking with halogen lights. Of course, they did do a bit of maths and a bit of calculation, and it's obvious to me these guys know what they're doing because these bikes are just so well made. But they actually calculated the saving LED headlights against halogen headlights was in meters rather than kilometers. But anyway, that was the Zero DSR. If you remember before, I actually had a go on the SR and I had a go on the DS. So this is me finally having had the chance to have a go on the bike, which is both of those things built together. So we've got the more powerful motor but with the dual sport trimmings on the chassis, because the DS and the SR, same chassis. The only thing that's different is stuff like the tyres and the higher, wider handlebars on the DS to give that dual sport feeling. The mudguard as well, obviously. But anyway, that was a hell of a lot of fun. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I'm just seeing from the very subtle sticker here, Zero give you a 5-year warranty on the batteries that you get with these bikes. So that's 5 years of any problems at all with the battery, Zero are going to sort it out. But couple that with the fact that on any of the Zero bikes that you get, the running gear and everything of the bike itself have a warranty of 250,000 miles. I've never yet seen a bike which has done 250,000 miles. So if these beasties last that long, that's astronomical mileage. So one of these is just going to last you forever, literally forever. But that's enough about that. Let's move on to something a little bit smaller, a little bit cuter.
Wild eyes got a hunger, a wilderness inside.
So this is the Super Soco TS, essentially an electric equivalent of a 50cc scooter. The probably most amazing thing about it is this is the motor in the back wheel. It's a hub motor, which means there's no losses of power due to chain and sprockets or belts and wheels and pulleys and things. It's just in the back there, and it's actually a Bosch hub motor at that. So anyway, the bike has keyless start, so first just need to unlock it with the little key fob and push the button. We get a window style piano plinky plonky music and jazzy animation before we're ready to go with an astonishing, I'm not sure how many horsepower, but I'm going to put it on the screen for you right now. I've got it in rider mode number 1, which is eco. So then we go stonking down the street, and the acceleration is... it's not stonking actually, so we've maxed out here at 18 miles an hour. Switch it into the second mode. That's got us up to 22 miles an hour. Let's stick it onto 3. Then we should be able to get roughly around about somewhere near to the Super Soco's maximum de-restricted speed of about 30 miles an hour. Look at that. Now we're on the flattened level, 32 miles an hour. And again, there's just the eerie silence of it making no noise whatsoever. The keen-eyed of you will have seen that we've got 2 hydraulic reservoirs here, but that's because it's front brakes on the right, rear brakes on the left. There's no foot pedals at all on this bike. It's just got pegs for holding your feet, and that's it. It's quite nippy, to be honest. It's quite impressive. It's a tiny little thing. I mean, it's about the size of a Grom, I would think, maybe slightly smaller. Oh, it's even got a clicker on the indicators. It's a nice little touch. Oh, nearly did a burnout on that gravel there. It was all the power. Alright, this is only just a quick little run. I just wanted to have a go on it, just to see what it was like. Yeah, God, if you wanted something just to get down the shops and you could ride on a CBT, that exactly does the job, doesn't it? Yeah, the suspension is very firm, mind. So there we go, that was a quick little test of the Soco TS 1200R. They do actually also do another one called the TC, which is a bit faster. It's more of an equivalent of a 125, which obviously would be more comparable with a Grom, I would imagine. So now, we've saved the best till last. Let's see about having a little razz on that motocross converted FXS. So we're heading round to the off-road arena. Absolute maniac. I'm going to kill myself.
So you haven't done all that?
No, I was just going to say, have you got any tips? How do I not kill myself?
Just take it easy on the throttle because you've got masses of torque straight away. What most people do when they go around the corner, it goes like that, and then they go the other side and they go like that.
And I've got more torque than before because of the gearing.
Yeah, you have actually. Yeah, you've lost some of the top end.
I don't think that's going to be a problem. So, let's try not to kill myself. Absolutely nuts. You get an astonishing amount of grip from the tyres, don't you? I know nothing about off-roading, I really don't. Got no clue whatsoever. I probably look like a complete plonker poncing around here super slow. Oh, I actually got a wheelie out of it, brilliant.
One of the things we're going to do is race it in a sprint. So I've been practicing trying to get into a position where it doesn't wheelie. It's almost, you know, when you're like that, you've got to get almost over the front wheel to stop it coming up. It's so much torque.
Have you done anything to the shocks as well, or are they standard?
No, I haven't changed suspension at all.
It's just so manageable. Is that part of the course, or is that
Got there if you want.
I'd be disappointed in myself if I didn't try. Right, going off-road, lads. Going off-road. Don't know if I fancy that. Stuck now. I was giving it Billy Big Nuts and then chickened out. Right, I kind of off-roaded. I did a little bit. Right, try a little bit more. Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
How good the matting is, even on low speed.
Yeah, this is incredible. Right? You'd have to be clutching it to do this on a normal bike, wouldn't you? And it's just balancing it is impossibly easy. Yeah, for me then, it had more than enough power. I could have really got into some serious trouble there.
That is a handful.
Yeah.
You know, if you...
It's a weapon.
It is an absolute weapon, yeah, an absolute weapon.
Hey, that was awesome. Thanks very much.
Alright, that's cool. No, so you've had the full shebang now, haven't you?
Yeah, full range. I'll take all of them. I will take all of them.
Yeah, I'll put you down for one of each.
So there we go. There's my little foray back into electric motorbikes over. Massive thanks to Alec and the English Electric Motor Company for a thoroughly enjoyable little test ride session there. That was awesome. So now I just have to go back to this noisy beast. Truly fabulous machines, they really are. And I say that with 100% genuine honesty. I have no affiliation, I've received no money. I have not been blackmailed in any way. I really do think those bikes are friggin' amazing. And it seems like range issues, charging issues, they're becoming smaller and smaller with every passing day. In fact, Alec was just telling me about lithium sulfur battery technology is being worked on as we speak, and that will actually provide double the capacity for the same weight with quicker charging capabilities. So it's exciting times for electric bikes, it really is. Developments are coming along and things are getting better by the moment. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little electrifying session, and I will see you next time. Ta-ra!